What if one of the most profound spiritual texts in history could actually give us a clear, logical guide for facing our biggest fears? Life, death, our place in the world. Well, let's dive right in, because we're about to unpack a single, incredibly powerful verse from the Bhagavad Gita that does exactly that. So, this is it. This is the heart of our entire explainer. Now, on the surface, it seems pretty straightforward, almost blunt, right? But believe me, packed inside this one verse is a complete framework for understanding existence. We're going to break it down piece by piece, starting with the really dramatic moment it was first spoken. So, where does this incredible piece of wisdom even come from? Picture this. We're on the ancient battlefield of Kurukshetra. A massive war for justice is about to kick off. But its greatest warrior? He's having a complete and total breakdown. Yeah, this isn't just some random soldier. It's the great warrior Arjuna. And he's looking across the battlefield, and what he sees are his own cousins, his beloved teachers, even his grandfathers. The very idea of fighting them, of being the cause of their death, it just paralyzes him with grief. It's this intensely human crisis that opens the door for his guide, Lord Krishna, to deliver this profound teaching. Now, Krishna's response isn't what you'd expect. He doesn't just say, hey, don't worry, it'll all be fine. No. Instead, he completely reframes the entire problem. He basically pulls the camera all the way back to show Arjuna a much, much bigger picture. The inescapable cycle of life itself. So Krishna's teaching here really splits the verse into two undeniable truths. First, if you're born, death is an absolute certainty. There's just no escaping it. And second, and this is the part that's a total game changer, if you die, birth is also a certainty. It presents life and death not as some linear, one-way street, but more like a revolving door. And the mechanism behind this whole revolving door idea? Well, that's reincarnation. The core concept here is that the you that is truly you, your consciousness, your essence, it doesn't just poof, vanish at death. It's seen as eternal, and it simply moves from one physical body to the next. Now, to really get this, we have to understand the fundamental distinction that this whole philosophy is built on. It's all about the difference between who you think you are and who you really truly are. And the contrast couldn't be more stark. Look, the body is temporary, right? It changes, it decays, and eventually it dies. The soul, on the other hand, is considered eternal. It's unchanging, and it just transmigrates. It moves on. So you see, the grief that Arjuna is feeling is for the temporary shell, not for the eternal passenger that's inside. So here's the crucial takeaway. In this worldview, death isn't the end. It's not like your file gets deleted. It's a transition. It's simply the moment the eternal soul separates from its temporary physical home. I mean, that one idea changes absolutely everything. Okay, so we've got an eternal soul. We've got this endless cycle. But how in the world does that help a warrior frozen on a battlefield? Well, this is where Krishna brilliantly connects philosophy to real-world action. He actually builds a logical case for why Arjuna has to do his duty. And that duty has a name, dharma. It's a huge concept, but you can think of it as your purpose, your calling, your righteous path. For a doctor, their dharma is to heal. For a teacher, it's to educate. And for Arjuna, as a warrior fighting in a just war, his dharma was to fight. This brings us to Krishna's core argument, and it's just incredibly logical. He starts with a fact you can't deny. For anyone who is born, death is certain. Check. Then he adds his core spiritual premise. For anyone who dies, rebirth is also certain. Okay, so this leads to an unavoidable conclusion. Since this whole cycle is inevitable, you shouldn't be paralyzed by grief over it. Instead, you have to focus on the one thing you can control, performing your duty. And look, this doesn't mean Arjuna is supposed to feel nothing. Krishna is not asking him to be cold or heartless. He's saying that letting your grief completely cloud your judgment, letting it stop you from doing what you know is right, well, that's a kind of ignorance. It's focusing so much on the temporary that you lose sight of the much bigger picture. So what does a warrior's dilemma from thousands of years ago have to do with us, right here, right now? Well, it turns out this whole framework is surprisingly practical for navigating our own, modern lives. I mean, think about it. This perspective can help us process loss without being totally consumed by despair. It can dial down that deep-seated fear we all have of things ending. And maybe most importantly, it pushes us to ask that big question: what is my purpose? What's my dharma? And because we know our time here is temporary, it really encourages us to act with wisdom and just make the most of the life we've got. And let's be absolutely clear on this point. This is not a philosophy of indifference. It's the exact opposite. It's a call to engage with the world more fully, to act with courage and with purpose, but to do all of it with the wisdom that comes from a much, much larger perspective. So we'll end with this, because it really is the central question this verse leaves us with. If you were to truly accept that this life isn't just a one-shot deal, that death is just a doorway in a much longer journey, what would you do differently, starting right now? How would that change the way you live today?